Okay, 2-9 deals with percents. You've been working with percent problems through 7th and 8th grade, so hopefully this will be just review for you. So with the first percent proportion, they want you to set up your A is P percent of B as the ratios A over B and P over 100. When you set them equal, then they become a proportion. So B is your base, and A is the part of the base. Some people look at this as the is over the of, because the numbers follow the is and the of. All right, so what percent of 50 is 20? So 50 is a larger number than 20. 20 is the part of the base, and it also follows the is. It goes on the top. The 50 follows the of, and it is the base. It goes on the bottom. We are trying to find the P. So you set up the proportions. 20 over 50 equals P over 100. And then we can cross multiply. 20 times 100 is 2,000. 50P, divide by your 50, and you get 40. Make sure you write it as a percent if you do it this way, because the question said what percent. So we can also solve this differently. It's the same thing. We can use properties of proportions to help us and simplify our fraction first. 2 times 10 and 5 times 10 are my 20 over 50. The 10s would cancel, so 2/5 equals P over 100. 5 times 20 gives me 100, so I have to multiply the numerator by 20, because you always want to multiply by 1. 2 times 20 is 40, so P is 40, which is 40%. So that's, if you want to simplify your fractions to help you solve quickly, you can. Now, it doesn't matter to me when the directions say use the percent proportion or use the percent equation, which one you use. I always use percent equation because it's much easier for me to understand. So whichever one you learned, stay with it, use it. I find the percent equation easier because as I read A is P percent of B, I can write down my equation. A is just A. Is always your equal sign. P percent, use whatever variable you want for your percent. If you want it P, that's great. Of is always multiplication. B will be B. So I can come down, read my sentence exactly, and write my equation. So now I'm going to show you some examples of using your equation. So P percent of 50 is 20. So this is the same exact problem that I had earlier. So you don't know the percent, so you can call it P, you can call it X. Of, again, was multiplication. 50 is 50. Is your equal sign, and 20 is 20. So now I have P times 50 equals 20. I'm looking to get P by itself, so I have to divide both sides by 50. And then I have my 20 over 50, which simplifies to 2/5 or 0.4, which is 4/10. Again, I took and canceled my 10s when I did this in my head. 10 over 10 is just 1. 2/5, I'd multiply both sides by 2, which gives me 4/10 to convert it into a decimal. And then 4/10, when I convert it to your percent, is just multiplying by 100, or moving your decimal place 2 to the right. You've been working on those also, so we can convert it to our percent. If you don't want to do it all in your head, put 20 divided by 50 in your calculator for your 0.4, and then convert it to your percent. All right, another example of a type of problem. This one's worded differently than the first one. It says, what is? Well, when it says what is, I know I don't know what is, so I put it as an X. Is, again, is equals. My percent, I'm going to write as a percent, 0.63, sorry. My percent I'm going to write as the decimal that it is, because percent again means divide by 100. So it's 63 hundredths, 0.63, of is multiplication, 150. I can set up my equation, even though it's differently, I don't have to think about it. I can just read it and write it. All right, so now I have x is equal to 0.63 times 150. Put that in your calculator, multiply it, and you get 94.5. If it's worded still differently, 80% of what number is 20? 80%, write down as your decimal, 0.8, because again you're dividing by 100, which moves your decimal 2 places to the left. Of is always multiplication. What number? I don't know it. It's x. Is always equal. 20 would be 20. Okay, so now I have a number times the x, so to get rid of multiplication, I have to divide. So I divide both sides by 0.8. 20 divided by 0.8 gives you 25. Anytime you divide by a decimal, your number is going to get larger. Because you have 8/10, you would flip it over and multiply by the reciprocal to simplify it. So it would get larger. Again, just put it in your calculator and get your number. So it's always the numerator divided by the denominator. Okay, the other type of problems in this section are your simple interest problems. So we're going to have an equation. I equals P times R times T. And again, if you want to put the dots in, you can, but we usually leave them out. So these are what the letters mean, the variables. I is your interest, P is your principal, the amount of money you're investing. R is your annual interest rate, it almost looks like an O, annual interest rate. T is your time in years. So we're going to have some values that we're going to plug into the variable, just like you've been doing your substitution so far this year in some of your homework problems. All right, so you deposit $150 in a savings account that earns simple interest at a rate of 5.5% per year. How much interest will you have after 4 years? So if I look at my equation again, how much interest? So I doesn't have any information. You deposit $150 in the savings account. That's my principal. My rate, 5.5%, we're going to write as the decimal, and time is 4. So P was 150. My rate, 0.055 times 4. Put that in your calculator. And after 4 years, you're going to have $33 worth of interest. And your problem would be done. So those are your examples of your problems and what you're going to be doing in your homework.